How much?
It varies. For instance, it could be around Rs 30,000 if you're opting for state quota seats in private colleges.
Hmm.
Or it might be a larger sum, maybe Rs 1 lakh or sometimes even more, if you're locking choices for management or NRI quota seats in private institutions. The key is that this amount is refundable if no seat is allotted to you based on your choices and rank.
Okay, refundable if no seat. And when is the actual tuition fee paid?
The full first-year tuition fee isn't paid during choice filling. It's paid after you receive an official allotment order for a specific college. At that point, you usually need to pay it via a demand draft, essentially a guaranteed bank-issued check when you report to the college or the designated center.
Got it. And what happens after you've locked choices and paid any security deposit? How is the allotment done?
The seat allotment is done centrally by the DME's software. It's based strictly on the choices you locked, your state merit rank, your NEET score, and the applicable reservation policy for your category. Once the seat is provisionally allotted, candidates receive an allotment order, usually downloadable online. Then they must report to the allotted college by the stipulated deadline mentioned in the order.
And what happens at the college?
That's when the physical document verification happens. They'll check all your original certificates against the copies submitted earlier. If everything is in order, you complete the admission formalities, pay the tuition fee via DD, and secure your admission.
Is there any flexibility? What if a candidate isn't happy with the seat they got in round one? Or maybe they change their mind?
In the earlier rounds, particularly round one, there are usually free exit options. This means you might be able to decline the allotted seat without forfeiting your security deposit and remain eligible for subsequent rounds like round two. However, the rules become much stricter in later rounds, especially after the mop-up round.
How so?
Failing to join a college after being allotted a seat in later rounds, or deciding to leave after joining, often leads to the forfeiture of your admission and the security deposit. And you might even incur significant additional penalty payment, plus potentially being barred from future rounds. The rules are complex and need careful reading each year.
Right, read the fine print carefully. Speaking of penalties, let's talk about bonds and financial penalties after joining. What kind of commitments are medical students looking at in Tamil Nadu once they're in?
This is a very significant consideration for anyone planning to study here. There's typically a mandatory bond requirement for MBBS graduates from government medical colleges in Tamil Nadu.
A bond. What does it entail?
It usually requires them to serve for a certain period, often up to 5 years, potentially in rural areas or government service within the state, after completing their course and internship.
And if someone decides not to fulfill this bond, if they want to go elsewhere for PG immediately, for example?
If this bond is broken, there's usually a substantial financial penalty that needs to be paid to the state government. Currently, it's often around the Rs 5 lakhs mark.
5 lakhs penalty for breaking the service bond.
Okay. What if someone decides to discontinue the MBBS course altogether after joining, say after the first or second year?
That also carries a hefty penalty, often called a discontinuation fee. If you discontinue the MBBS course after joining, and especially after a certain cutoff date usually set by the authorities, like the last date of counseling, the penalty can be quite substantial, sometimes up to Rs 10 lakhs.
10 lakhs, why so high? It's often calculated based on the estimated cost of the subsidized education you received, essentially the non-subsidized course fee for the period you attended. These bonds and penalties are definitely something to be aware of. They're firmly in place to ensure commitment, given the state's investment in subsidized medical education, and also to address healthcare needs, especially in underserved rural areas.
Absolutely critical factors for students and parents to weigh. So, okay, let's imagine someone has successfully navigated all these hurdles: NEET, application, counseling, bonds, and secured a seat. What's life actually like as a medical student in Tamil Nadu? What can new students truly expect day to day?
Well, first and foremost, it's important to be realistic. A medical career is profoundly demanding, and the MBBS course itself reflects that. It's incredibly strenuous. Students should absolutely anticipate very long hours of study, lectures, practicals.
And clinical work.
Yes. Significant clinical exposure, often starting quite early compared to some other places. And definitely be prepared for intense periods, especially during the final year internship or the compulsory rotatory residential internship, CRRI, which often includes demanding 24-hour shifts in busy government hospitals.
So definitely not a 9 to 5 experience.
Not at all. But beyond that demanding schedule, Student life in Tamil Nadu is also characterized by, that strong emphasis on practical skills honed in those busy clinical settings. And there's usually a very vibrant student community. You form incredibly strong, lifelong bonds with your batchmates going through that intense experience together.
That makes sense. Now, for students coming from outside Tamil Nadu, is there a particular cultural or maybe more importantly, linguistic expectation they should be prepared for?
Absolutely. This is a key point. For students coming from other states, there's a strong expectation. And I'd say it's really a practical necessity to learn Tamil.
Why is learning Tamil so important?
It isn't just for cultural integration, although that helps. Crucially, it's to effectively converse with patients during their clinical postings and internship. Most patients, especially in government hospitals, will primarily speak Tamil. Being able to communicate directly is vital for diagnosis, treatment, and building rapport. It's a critical skill for their daily practice and future work if they stay in the state.
Okay, so language acquisition is a must for non-Tamil speakers. Anything else unique? You mentioned the 7.5% quota earlier.
Yes, a related point for students admitted under that specific 7.5% government school quota, the state government actually covers their hostel or boarding charges, which is a significant financial relief for those students.
That's a great support measure. Okay, that practical point about language is vital. Now let's talk money. The expense of studying MBBS in Tamil Nadu. Can you give us a clear breakdown of the typical tuition fees? Let's start with government colleges.
Certainly. For government medical colleges, if you get a seat under the government quota, the annual tuition fees are remarkably low, really among the lowest in the entire country. For candidates in the open category, OC, backward class, BCM, and MBC categories, it's typically around Rs 13,610 per year.
Just over 13,000 rupees a year. That's incredibly affordable.
It is. And for scheduled castes, SC, SCA, ST candidates, and those under the Persons with Benchmark Disabilities, PWBD category, it's even lower, around Rs 9,610 per year.
Less than 10,000 rupees. Amazing.
Yeah.
Now, how do these compare to the self-financing private colleges? Big difference, I assume.
A very significant difference, yes. In self-financing private medical colleges, the fees vary quite drastically depending on the quota you get admitted through. If you secure a government quota seat within a private college, the fee is regulated by the Government Fee Committee. It's currently around Rs 4.35 lakhs to Rs 4.5 lakhs per year.
Okay, 4.5 lakhs for a government seat in a private college. What about the management quota in those same private colleges?
For management quota seats, it jumps considerably higher. You're looking at around Rs 13.5 lakhs per year.
13.5 lakhs annually. And the NRI quota?
That's the most expensive category.
Mm-hmm.
NRI quota seats typically cost approximately Rs 24.5 lakhs per year.
24.5 lakhs, wow.
And there's one more category, NRI lapsed quota. These are essentially NRI seats that weren't filled and are offered to eligible domestic students, usually at a slightly lower rate than the full NRI fee, maybe around Rs 21.5 lakhs per year.
Okay, so a huge range, from under 10,000 in government colleges to nearly 25 lakhs in private NRI seats. That's a massive financial spectrum.
It truly is. The financial implications depend heavily on which type of seat you secure.
Are there any fee exemptions available, perhaps for lower income students, even within these structures? You mentioned SCST exemption for the application fee.
Yes, there are provisions for tuition fee exemption as well, specifically in government colleges. SCA and SC candidates admitted to government medical colleges whose parents' annual income is below a certain threshold, usually around Rs 2.5 lakhs,
Okay.
are generally exempted from paying all compulsory non-refundable fees like tuition fees, special fees, etc. There's a similar provision for SC candidates who have converted to Christianity, often with a slightly lower income ceiling, maybe around Rs 2 lakhs per annum.
And how does this work? Do they just not pay?
Essentially, yes. These exempted fees are typically claimed by the institutions directly from the government under various Government of India scholarship programs meant for these communities. The student doesn't bear the cost.
That's a crucial support mechanism. So given all these opportunities and the sheer number of seats in Tamil Nadu, both affordable government seats and the open private seats, it's interesting to note that some Tamil Nadu students actually do seek MBBS seats elsewhere in India. Why is that? What drives them to look beyond their home state?
That's a really interesting dynamic, isn't it? Despite Tamil Nadu's strong reputation and high seat count, the competition, especially for those top government colleges, is just incredibly intense. The cutoffs are very high, as we discussed.
So intense competition is one factor.
Definitely. So some Tamil Nadu students, even high scorers who might just miss a top government seat here, may prefer to pursue MBBS in other Indian states. Sometimes it's due to a perceived higher quality of education or perhaps better national ranking of certain institutions outside the state. Think AYAM's Delhi or other top central institutes.
Right. The allure of
Yeah.
specific prestigious institutions elsewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're looking for specific research opportunities available in other states. There's also the simple factor of seat availability. Maybe they find it easier to get a seat, even a paid one, in a particular state that aligns better with their preferences or score range. And sometimes it's about perceived better career prospects or PG opportunities after graduation if they study in certain other locations or central universities. It's a complex mix of factors.
So it's a combination of intense local competition, perceived quality or prestige elsewhere, specific seat access, and maybe future career calculations that drive some students out, even with excellent options available locally. Makes sense. Now, finally, let's circle back to the very latest developments. What are the key medical news updates coming out of Tamil Nadu right now that our listeners should really be aware of?
Well, we have to start where we began, with that truly inspiring news of the 3 senior citizens successfully cracking NEET and applying for MBBS seats. It just wonderfully underscores the spirit of lifelong learning and challenges all sorts of traditional notions about career paths and age.
Absolutely. A great story. What else?
Another major ongoing development, as we discussed in detail, is the rigorous enforcement action being taken by the selection committee. The publication of that ineligible list and the strict actions against fake documents and the debarment of legal threats really reinforces their steadfast commitment to maintaining the integrity of the admission process. They mean business.
Right. The crackdown on fraud is very current news. Anything positive on the horizon regarding future seat availability? More seats coming.
Yes, there's actually very positive news on that front. Recently, 5 new government medical colleges were approved to be established in Tamil Nadu.
5 new colleges. That's significant.
It is. And this ties into a broader national trend. There's news indicating that close to 100 new medical colleges, both government and private, are potentially coming up nationwide in the near future. If this materializes, it could add thousands of new MBBS seats across the country in the coming years, which would significantly impact future admissions and hopefully ease some of that intense competition we've been talking about.
More seats would certainly be welcome news for aspirants. Okay, so if we try to pull all of these threads together now, what are the main key takeaways from this deep dive into medical admissions in Tamil Nadu? What should listeners really remember?
I think this deep dive really highlights a landscape that's both highly competitive yet also increasingly inclusive, especially with policies like the removal of the age limit. NEET plays that absolutely crucial singular role as the gateway, but it's clear that passing NEET is just the first step. What follows is a really rigorous admission process involving various quotas, extremely strict document verification, and, as we've seen, dynamic updates and enforcement. And beyond just getting admitted, aspiring doctors need to seriously consider the significant financial commitment, depending on the seat type, and also the long-term bonds of service often required, particularly from government colleges. It's a major life decision.
Precisely summarized. It's a demanding path right from the start. And looking ahead then, given all these latest developments we've discussed, from senior citizens pursuing medicine to the stringent measures against fraudulent applications and this potential major expansion of medical colleges, it really raises an important, perhaps provocative question for us to ponder. How might the landscape of medical education, not just in Tamil Nadu, but maybe across India, evolve to truly balance that triangle of aspiration, accessibility, and accountability in the coming years? And maybe even more fundamentally, what kind of doctors will these evolving pathways ultimately create for our society? That's a profound thought to end on, and certainly something worth thinking about. It's clear that the world of medical education in Tamil Nadu is as dynamic and complex as it is vital. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.